our next speaker, carrying forward with the theme about the future and our youth. Next, I have the pleasure of introducing Mike Belshe, the co-founder and CEO of BitGo. I also met Mike many years back at the office grand opening for BitGo, which I believe was in 2014.
All right. Hey, Connie, great to see you again.
Great to see you too.
It's been a long time.
It has been a long time. It has been a long time. And we just recently launched our integration with BitGo on our GiveTrack platform.
Right.
And we're really excited about that. It not only provides a superior service for our NGO partners, but it really substantially improved the functionality and the stability of our platform.
Yeah.
So
glad we could help a little bit. So thank you for all the work that you've been doing. 7 years in, and you're still moving on this, which is a fantastic achievement as well.
Thank you so much. Well, we're happy to have you here today, and we'll have you talking about helping the next generation to reimagine money.
That's right. All right, so I'm going to share my screen here. I get some slides. As you can see, I've put this into good school format with a little bit of chalkboard and chalk theme behind it. All right, teaching kids to reimagine money. Software is eating the world. Mark Andreessen famously said this, I think, a little over 10 years ago, and it's true. But one of the last bastions of kind of traditional offerings to fall into the software world is financial services. It is harder. It's about money. It's regulated. It's got a lot around it. But the fact that software is getting in and starting to change financial services opens up tremendous opportunities. And frankly, this is going to be a multi-year effort. It already has been. Bitcoin's now got 12 years of history under its belt, and it's going to take a lot more for this to really get everywhere they can go. So the future generations are the key, and starting to put a really good educational program behind it, it is super important. So, money, we talk about it a lot. We pursue it. Money is power. It's freedom. It's equality. It's opportunity. It's quality of life. I'm here in America, so we have a particular view, a particular good fortune, I think, to have a really relatively stable form of money. Some people dispute that on this call, I'm sure. But compared to other parts of the world, I think it's very easy to recognize that indeed we do. And yet, despite the importance of money in our lives, we do not teach it to our children. So I wasn't taught about money at school at all. And it's probably a weakness and a handicap. I'm CEO of BitGo. We're a digital asset custodian. We're a regulated entity. We handle a fairly large amount of the world's Bitcoin transactions around the world. And yet, wasn't trained anything with regard to money in the early days. I'm mostly a technologist, and so I spent most of my life thinking about technology. And I never really thought that hard or that long about what is money and what impact I could have on it until Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, like for many of us, it causes us to drop into this very large rabbit hole, they call it, of educational pursuit and understanding. And I think the greatest thing that Bitcoin has ever done, or will ever do, actually, is opening our eyes. The idea that we can now have a better form of money. And this isn't to be negative on Bitcoin. I'm hugely bullish on Bitcoin. I think it's tremendous. It'll be around for a very long time to come. But the opening up of money to software is usable in all sorts of different contexts. So we've got open systems, of course. We've got store of value systems. You've got payment systems. You've got global remittance systems, smart contracts. You've got transparency that we've never seen before. The 2008 crisis, frankly, maybe that could be avoided if we build better systems. And frankly, the blockchain with its transparency and openness could be some of the fundamentals of that. So why teach finance to kids? A lot of times on the business side of what we do at BitGo, I talk about there's a global economy today. We can hire folks in India, to do tech jobs or to do support jobs or whatever. We can hire manufacturing out of China, but you cannot send a payment to a supplier in China to get started on manufacturing on a Monday morning if it's a Sunday night. The banking system and the existing financial system doesn't allow it. So we've got a global economy. We don't have a global financial system yet, and it's coming. The current financial systems have taken decades to build, centuries in some cases, And so these are going to be slow to change, and it's money. It's of such extreme importance as we just described. So how are we going to change it? It's going to be a multi-year effort, and we need to start training the next generation to have a really, really strong grasp of the fundamentals so that we can end up with a much better financial system tomorrow. And I suspect I could ask people on this call, who's satisfied with their bank today? And there are probably very few hands that raise. I can't do that because it's virtual, but I'll just assert that pretty much nobody raised their hands on that. So blockchain technology, it's going to give us a level playing field. This is very much in line with what Americans are looking for. We're looking for more equality. We're looking for a place where individuals and corporations have the same set of opportunities. There's no advantages to one or the other. When you have Bitcoin type technologies, we now all have kind of the same abilities. And I hope that this leads to something, and I first got this from Wences Casares, the ability to receive money, store money, and spend money really ought to be considered a fundamental human right. When you think about it, regardless of where you live on this planet, if you don't have the ability to reliably maintain money, how are you going to plan for your future? How are you going to put your kids through whatever education you think is right for them? It's just not possible. So, we have an opportunity right now. It's really important we get it right and help kids start to think and reimagine, what can happen down the line. We also have to remember that, our kids, they're going to have jobs that don't even exist today. And they're going to use technologies that haven't yet been invented. This is taken from a video, the same one that this one comes from. It's a Did You Know video. It was popular a few years back. Talked about some of the globalization effects that are happening around the world. This particular slide is a little bit more for the Americans. They have more honors kids than we have kids. The U.S. is small potatoes compared to the global financial system that's coming. And the number of kids that we have in total is smaller than like the smartest of the smart in China or India, et cetera. So if we, in America in particular, don't get our act together and start educating kids about how money affects them and how they might change it for the future, we're going to lose some of the dominance that we have in the global financial system. So I think it's even more important for Americans to consider education. All right, but unfortunately, it's pretty clear we can't count on the school system to do this. Personal finance often comes up as a topic of something that, it should be taught in schools. It's so important to so many people, many that don't get off to college educations. How do you balance a checkbook? How do you do basic investing? Things like that. If we can't get personal finance, we're certainly not going to get the advanced topics of crypto and changing the monetary system and the school system. So we're going to have to start to think about how do we do this, even though the schools are going to take some more time. All right, so what would a digital money curriculum look like? And this is actually something I have spent some time on. Father of 4 children, and spent some time with the school that our kids go to, helping them figure out how can they start to introduce digital currency technologies and the principles of money to kids. By the way, kids are fascinated by this. I think a lot of Bitcoiners like myself find family dinner time, table topics, migrate over to Bitcoin and issues and advantages that come around it all the time. We probably talk about it too much. Probably if anybody else listened to us, they would think crazy, but this is real stuff. So, all right, a prerequisite to a good program. Cybersecurity and security topics, they're not taught to kids. And if you've got kids like I do, just staying safe online is actually, it's not easy. We've got a tremendous number of apps that they are downloading constantly. They start with a position of trust. Kids are this way, right? So I think, in the middle schools in particular, we really need to start getting a good, healthy set of security in front of our kids. Digital privacy is also tough. We've always told our kids, look, don't share your personal information, your phone number, information about your parents' financials, et cetera. How are we going to manage if we do have digital money in the future and kids are making the same mistakes that they made, in the last 10 years? It could have a lot of financial effects on not just the children, but the families. And of course, we do need to have personal finance being taught. I'm going to leave this topic off because I think it's off topic from digital currencies. This all ought to be a prerequisite of any good program. In particular, I think, investment might be one that we do have to change our approach on. Robinhood has had some tragic events this year where people that are retail investors are now being exposed in an ever increasing way to financial products they may or may not fully understand. And that can cause them to take dire actions in their lives, which shouldn't happen. All right. So a second area that I think Bitcoin in particular really teaches us and those of us that have gone down the rabbit hole, money, understanding like what it is, how it works, how did it come to be, what makes good money, how does foreign exchange work, right? How do you know how many US dollars are equivalent to a euro? What does it mean to have a floating currency? This starts to get into more high school types of topics, but I think if we have a good curriculum, we would actually span everything from about 8th grade till 12th grade with a healthy set of education here. And then lastly, I think we do start to get some of the overlap with just, how does the government impact all of this? What are fiat currencies? What are different methods of taxation? What does inflation as a monetary policy mean? I think our kids, I definitely hear it from my kids. They hear a lot, things like universal basic income. They're being taught politics like that at school, in high school. And yet they may not understand, like, okay, well, if you had a universal basic income, what kind of financial impact would that have on the country? What kind of financial impact would that have on the currency? So there's a lot that's missing from the educational system, just with the basics of how money works. Another area that we've kind of come across, and this actually came from the school. Kids are so easily able to reach all types of information, and Google is their friend, and they are on TikTok and they watch YouTube, and there's no end to the number of sources that they can access. They're inundated with information. Global information makes it so that somebody nowhere near them in locality can reach them with something that seems like it's local to them. Unfortunately, when you put money online, the sensitivity around the ability to critically think, is this real? Is this not real? Becomes even more important. And even adults lack, the ability to differentiate frauds a lot of times. Of course, on the financial side, it's usually not children falling prey to these things, but we can start to fix this by having kids really educated at an early age. Like, what is reasonable? What is good? What is bad? How do you decide if someone's a good actor or not? Some of these critical thinking skills are taught kind of from a general perspective, but I think an awareness of risk, learning to trust but verify is a critical part. And the school has highlighted this when we've talked with them about, can you bring some of these digital money concepts to younger audiences? The natural thing people talk about, I think, with blockchain technology is technology programming. There's a lot of growth in training of computer science to young folks at a much younger age than when I was their age. But I don't think everyone needs to be a programmer, but everyone does need to know about money. You're going to earn it. You're going to need it to live. It's going to be a huge part of your life, no matter what your particular vocation may be. Obviously, familiarity with technology and tools so you can verify your money, so you can understand, do you really have your money or not have your money? Everyone needs to have, but some people will opt into the technology, so I'll skip over that. And finally, regulatory and compliance actually, I think, also starts to come into bear here. I've scratched that out and called it ethics, because I think it gets a little bit beyond just kind of the high school level and maybe more of a college level to talk about regulatory compliance. But this is part of why it's hard for kids to think about money. The fact is a highly regulated space, as it should be, that we're talking about products which are so important. They literally mean life and death if you should mess them up. But the ethics of what you should be thinking about with regard to money is actually pretty highly correlated with what our regulation and compliance is intended, at least at the idealistic level, to accomplish. Transparency, honesty, don't rip people off. In other words, institutional investors should not be able to take advantage of retail investors. Also, don't get ripped off. That's the fraud side of this. And then don't interact with bad actors. These are things that can be taught. Obviously, teaching ethics doesn't mean that you don't have unethical people. That always happens. But I think if you don't try to teach kids about these concepts, you could end up with monetary systems that get them in trouble when they're of the right age. All right, lastly, I think this is an area we can now really learn by doing. I heard Isaiah mentioned some things earlier about kids getting into cryptocurrencies in a very real way. Look, if your kid doesn't have a crypto wallet today, get them one. Have them play around with it. Give them a little bit of currency to do something with. You'll be amazed the questions that they ask. They are incredibly smart. As for what I'm doing, at our school, we're trying to help the school put together a little program. There's tremendous interest from a whole bunch of kids. Bitcoin is not a foreign topic to these guys. It's amazing how much they read and they learn, and you can be very impressed by a 7th grade kid. But we're trying to put together some programs where there's kind of a reference framework blockchain that they can play with, and they can tinker with the money supply and who starts with it, how does it get distributed, how do you earn it, how do you transmit it, and then they can make applications of their own for how to use it. So it's kind of a test and play environment, and we're trying to put things together there. This is a work in progress, so always seeking like-minded people. If it's something that anyone here is interested in, you think it's a priority, feel free to reach out to me later. All right. So that's it. Thank you. And thank you also to the BitGive team. Really appreciate their continued efforts over the last, 8-9 years, whatever it's been now. Important stuff.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's been such a pleasure to have you. Really appreciate you sharing these thoughts with us today. I think, as Isaiah mentioned, it is so important, our future, our kids, and, it's critical that we actually think about this and be thoughtful about this and take action and implement. And I think there's not enough people thinking about it. So I really appreciate you bringing that forward today with us for this event. And also wanted to thank you again for sponsoring this event.
You bet. Thank you, Connie.